Hey guys, welcome back. I get a lot of questions on what do I need to start off? What supplies do I need? What color, what clear? So today we're going to talk about what kind of clear you might want to think about getting first starting off. If you just look at this when you start, you're going to look at a chart with a bunch of sizes and wall thicknesses, and it's going to seem overwhelming. So Mountain Glass was really smart about kind of setting out some packages for you to try out different stuff to see what you might like in your work and what's going to be great for the things that you want to make. So I got some different packs here. They basically can contain similar kind of items, just the quantity and quality changes a little bit. So I'm going to open up this one, kind of show you what's inside, and we'll talk about what each size could be potentially used for. One of the funnest things is opening up these wrapped packages because they're under this pressure and you can bring it with the knife and they just kind of flow open. So here we go. This kit is called the BB Kit 50. Let's see what we got in here. So the first thing is 9.5 millimeter tubing. This is a heavy wall tubing that can be used for blow tubes if you have smaller hands or want something to spin faster, and this could also be used for down stems of a water device. Let's see what else we got in here. It looks like we got some 15.9 millimeter. This stuff is good for a blow tube on a larger piece, and it's also good for oneies and smaller pieces, or maybe the stem of a bubbler, something like that. The next thing that we have is some rod. It looks like in the rod we have 3 millimeter, 5 millimeter, 7 millimeter, right in this little bundle. And the 3 millimeter is great for fuming and drawing over the fume, kind of making some inside out work. And the 5 and the 7 can be used for punties or for dots and things like decorative things. This is super important to have when you're starting out and throughout your career. The next size rod is 10 millimeter rod. 10 millimeter rod can be used for a punty for a larger piece, adding more clear onto a piece, making marbles, things like that. Definitely you want to try a little bit of this in your studio as well. Most people tend to have all of this stuff in their studios and just kind of grab what they need. So definitely a lot of thought went into this pack. Here we have 12 millimeter blow tube. This is very typically what many people use for the blow tube, the handle of their piece as they're blowing it out. It's what I use a lot too. And we also have a few more things in here. We have some 19 millimeter heavy wall tubing. This stuff can be used to make spoons, oneies, different parts of a bubbler, tubes. This is great all around tubing. Kind of goes right in line with the next size up, which is, I would say, the standard most popular tube, which is 25, 26 millimeter, depending on what company makes it. But this is really the standard staple that everybody has in their studio, and it has many applications for making pipes, goblets, ornaments. Anything can be made with this size tubing. And lastly in the case, what you get is some 15.9, or a lot of us just call it 16 millimeter rod. And this is great for marbles, adding in sculptural elements to your piece, even sculpting just out of the rod itself. So this is an example of some of the varieties of sizes that you're going to want to have in your studio. And if you want to order one of these packs, just call up Mountain Glass Arts, let them know which pack you'd like, and it gives a lot of samples for you to kind of refine what you might want a little bit more of and a little bit less of. Thanks a lot for checking this out. I'll see you guys soon in the next video. Welcome back. A lot of times people ask, what kind of colors should I buy when I'm starting off? You know, what's the right choice? How much should I buy? What colors should I buy? And it's a big world. I mean, it's not like when I started, we had 4 colors. And now, you know, I just walked through Mountain Glasses and they have more color than I've ever seen in my life, with more varieties. And so part of the fun of blowing glass is these colors and using them in different ways, laying them on top of each other, blowing them out, blowing them into each other, striping them on. You can get so many varieties and so many things out of these colors these days that it will take a lifetime to really fully understand the properties of each color. As you get better at blowing glass and more familiar with glass, you will be able to look at a color, feel its texture, look at the color that it is, and make an educated guess on how that color will react in the flame. And that just comes with some experience. What I'd recommend is buy a couple sample packs from Mountain Glass. They have a variety of different kinds of things, different manufacturers, and just test a few out, see what kind of things feel right with your work and what you're doing, and then order a little bit more of that color. Some of the bigger color companies, or the more well-known color companies, are North Star, Glass Alchemy, Troutman, and then there's some smaller ones like Greasy Glass, Molten Ore, Paramore, and a few other smaller companies that make kind of boutique colors. Some of them are very hard to get, almost impossible, and some of them you could just order what you want. Let's just open a pack of color, kind of see what we get here. This is from Troutman, and it's a beautiful, Troutman is kind of in between boutique and bigger. And he's got beautiful colors. Paul Troutman was one of the big proponents to the development of borosilicate color in many ways. I won't go into the full history right now, but one of the reasons why I'm able to hold this variety of colors is because of his work throughout his life. So you can see I have pinks and purples, sparkle colors, whites and blues, and reactive colors, different kinds of colors, and each one will react a little bit differently. A lot of times the color has a label on it that gives kind of more detailed instructions about maybe what kind of chemicals or molecules are in the color, coloring agents, what the best way to work the color might be. And you can also find posters. Many of these companies have come out with posters that list their full spectrum of colors. It's a great thing to put in the studio. It's very inspirational, and you can see the whole gambit of colors from a certain company. Let's open one or two more and check out what we got. The Troutman colors are beautiful. Let's open the North Star Top 20 sample pack. North Star is the original, very first color company. And so they certainly have contributed tons to the glass world and to glass pipe culture. So we got a little bit shorter rods. So these are going to be stuff that you can use to make just little kind of test pieces with. And one thing that you might want to think about doing is creating a little test piece out of each color and saving that, and don't sell it. And then one, you'll have a record of your work, and two, you'll have an example of what each of those colors does under certain circumstances. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about specific colors, you may want to check out the color tests that I have on the online school, and I melt different colors and talk about maybe what applications they might be useful for, and use that color in a few different ways. So these are the North Star colors. You can see they're very stable and even. Some of them may look clear right now in this state, but they're going to turn into something later. They might be UV reactive, or maybe when they melt, there's silver in it, and that's going to show up. Here's a classic North Star Caramel. This is one of the early colors that we had. This is one of the oldest colors. Also amber purple. Here's some of that right here, double amber purple. This is one of the classics, you guys. This color's been around for ages. It turns purple under certain kinds of flame chemistries. Super beautiful. Anyway, I could go on and on and on about color, but ultimately my suggestion would be to buy a few sample packs, test them out, do the same thing with each color, find out how that's working for you, and then keep moving on and keep learning about the library and keep expanding your color palette. I really appreciate you guys watching this. If you have any questions about color, feel free to use the chat in the bottom right of any page on the online school. I'll be happy to answer any questions for you. Thanks a lot. Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk to you about color tubing. When you're starting off and you're looking at all this tubing, there's so many choices and so many varieties that hopefully I can help simplify this so that you can kind of understand what you're dealing with and what the right thing for you to order when you're starting off and kind of experimenting. First of all, let's just make a side note. This is super exciting. Having this kind of colored tubing available is new. It's not something to be taken for granted. When I started blowing glass, there was no colored tubing. There was nothing like this. None of this stuff existed. I'm very grateful and thankful that there are so many varieties and styles. So there's a couple kinds. There's Chinese tubing. It's on the more affordable side of colored tubing, and it can be a little bit sensitive to thermal shock, which means that it can be more sensitive to cracking. The next kind of tubing we're going to talk about is crucible pulled tubing. That's what this is. And so this is dipped in a crucible when the glass is hot and then pulled. And this tubing is typically much more stable, but it's not as even walled. It can be pretty even, but even on this piece, which is fairly even, you can see that this end and this end are slightly different as the wall thickness. So it's going to take a little bit more working and understanding of the glass to get that nice and even. Crucible tubing comes in a variety of sizes, multiple layers, and definitely a lot of options with crucible pulled tubing. The next kind of tubing that you might want to consider is line tubing. This is line tubing, and this is used for making wigwags, line work, could be used for raticellos and other things like that. I know you guys have seen me use line tubing tons. Line tubing was never as accessible. Back in 2008, a friend of mine, Dave Strobel, and I started this company, Golden Gate Glassworks. I left around 2010 to focus on the school, and I'm so happy to see that they're successful. They still even use some of my original color line choices. Line tubing like this is available and easily accessible. I personally love to make my own patterns that are unique to my work, and I make them in-house. But for you guys starting off, that could be quite complicated and heavy, so I'd recommend you buy some line tubing that's already pre-made. The next kind of tubing that we're going to talk about is dichroic tubing. It's a version of line tubing that's a little bit fancier, and this is just beautiful stuff. So you can see that there's a layer of clear, and then a layer of color, and then a layer of dichroic, and then another layer of clear. This makes it very easy to work this dichroic tubing. You're not going to burn out the dichroic. You guys are going to have a ton of refraction, sparkles. It's super beautiful. And dichroic tubing comes in a few different styles, a few different colors. There's tons of different dichroic. Of course, you guys can make this at home. The technique used to make the line tubing and the dichro tubing is a vac stack. So you guys definitely can practice that. There's videos about that for you guys. But buying dichroic tubing may save time and money. They're going to get it right every single time, and you can just get that for your studio. The last thing I kind of want to touch on is smaller Chinese tubing, and this can be used for downstems, drains, perks, things like that. It's great to have around, and of course, you can make your own colored tubing in a multitude of ways, from blowouts to crucible pulls and vac stacks. You can do all that by yourself at home in your own studio. Feel free to check out any of the videos that we have in our knowledge base around how to make different kinds of colored tubings. And if you have any questions about what to buy or what the right choices are, please feel free to use the chat in the bottom right hand corner of any page of the school, and we'll answer any questions that you have about colored tubing. Thanks a lot for checking it out. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Frit, F-R-I-T. Frit is little pieces of glass that's broken up. It comes in many different colors. One thing that you have to consider is that dealing with Frit, you're dealing with broken powdered glass that can become airborne. So you need to have good ventilation and make sure that you're protecting yourself while you're using Frit. Many different companies make Frit, and most come in different sizes. And the sizes is referring to the coarseness of the Frit. Frit can be used to color a large amount of glass very quickly. It can be used to add in decorative elements to the glass. There's a lot of applications to Frit, so when you're starting off, I would recommend buying a few different kinds of Frit, testing them out, and seeing what kind of work you can produce with it. I have a few examples here of different colors from North Star, and I'm going to show you guys what the different courses of Frit look like. So let's open up this one. We're going to be very careful. This color is Mystery Adventurine. This is powder. So this is the finest Frit that North Star makes. So we'll open this up. You can kind of check that out and look at what the powdered glass looks like, which is the finest kind of broken up glass. The next size that we're going to open up, it's all the same color, Mystery Adventurine. This is fine Frit. So this is the second to finest that North Star sells. The next one that we're going to check out is small Frit, and this is the third to smallest that North Star sells, and each one of these Frits has a slightly different application. You can mix them together to have a combination of effects as well. You can mix colors together. It's really quite endless, and Frit is a wonderful, wonderful thing to add to your repertoire as you understand the different aspects of glassblowing. The last one we're going to show you is the large Frit, which of course is the largest style that North Star sells. You can even buy a rod, of course, of the same color and make your own Frit in larger size. What you would need to do would be to use a mesh screens to make sure that you get the same sizes all together if you want consistency. Some final thoughts on Frit. Number one, be safe. You're dealing with broken glass that could become airborne. Use the ventilation. Make sure you use protective gear if you're going to have airborne Frit around your mouth. Also, Frit is great to use if you want to color a large area of glass very fast, or have a variety of different sizes and dots and things like that. It can be a lot of fun to use Frit. I would really recommend that you guys get a little bit of Frit when you're starting off with maybe your first initial order. Kind of see what you can do, mess around with it, and experiment. Make sure you have fun. That's why we're doing this in the first place. Make sure you're enjoying yourself and getting in the zone. If you have any questions about Frit, glassblowing, torches, whatever you'd like, make sure you use the chat in the bottom right hand corner. Send us a message and we'll help you make any decisions about colors or sizes or anything else that you'd like some help with. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about joints. Ground glass joints, you guys. Come on. Ground glass joints are pretty important part of your work and the things that you're going to be ordering. There's a lot of different types, a lot of different shapes and sizes, and so it's important that you have a basic understanding of what ground glass joints are and how to order them so that you can have the right joints for your work. There's several different types. Let's start at the top. Basically, we have male and female joints, and then we have ground and unground joints. So the ground one have a texture on them, so they're a little bit sticky when they go into something, and they have certain applications while the unground have different applications. When you're looking at the numbers, the first number is the width in millimeters, and the second number is the length in millimeters. So this male 1019 joint is a male. It's 10 millimeters at its widest point and 19 millimeters long. And that'll give you a great understanding of what to order when you're ordering joints. Some of the more popular sizes are this one, this 10 millimeter, 1019, and then the 14, and then the 18 or 19s, depending on who you talk to. It's the same joint. Some people refer to them as different because technically the size is 18.8. Anyway, there's also a few other kind of specialty joints and other things in this category I'd like to talk to you briefly about. There's these things that are called bushings adapters, low profile. And that means that the outer on this one is a 14 and the inner is a 10. So that you can make a 14 millimeter female joint to drop this into and have a 10 millimeter slide. And that way it actually solves the problem of your downstem in a lot of applications that you're working on. The other kinds of common joints are available are these ones, which are called dewar joints, and these are specifically for a dewar seal. There's these drip tips, which are for making downstems and other things. They give you a little extra glass to attach to over here. And then there's some interesting threaded ones for making jars, water bottles, tincture vials, and other things like that, which are these ones on the bottom, which have a screw thread. You can order a few different kinds of joints. There's super high precision ones, and then there's ones that are more mass produced, and you can kind of consider what you want to buy for your work and what particular project you're interested in. One other thing that you can consider when thinking about joints is the wall thickness. If you have a heavy wall tube and you're going to want to connect a joint to that, you may want to consider what's called a bistabil joint, which is actually just a heavier wall thickness that may make it easier to make that seal. If you have any more questions about joints or the applications or anything else that you'd like to know, feel free to use the chat in the bottom right hand corner of any page on the online school, and we'll walk you through the best kind of joints that you need for your project.